All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's meeting of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Thanks to everyone for being here. We're going to start this meeting like we always do with an invocation and the pledge. And I'll turn it over to Supervisor Gallardo to introduce the individual who's going to be doing both of those for us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And our guest from District 5 is Fern Ward. She is on the Levine Elementary School Board and Fire District for Maricopa County.
That's right.
So thank you, Fern, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, please stand for the invocation.
Thank you. I invite you to join me as I pray. Father, I thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Please grant the leaders here today heart and wisdom as they make decisions that affect the needs of real people. Give them the confidence to know what is good and fitting. And Lord, please bless each person here with personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. May goodness flourish. Amen.
Amen.
If you join me, the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just have just a quick point of privilege here. Fern, thank you so much once again for always helping us here in District 5. Fern is a trooper out there in the area of Levine. She is involved in so much. Later on in the board meeting, we'll be appointing her to the Board of Adjustments. So another little pin in her hat that she'll be carrying now. But Fern is just a blessing. Her and her family have done so much out there in Levine. If you ever go out there and you ask about Fern, they know who she is. She's recently elected to the Levine School District and served on the Fire District for a number of years. But the one way I got to know her is a few years ago, she retired from the airlines, and her husband, semi-retired, decided that they were going to create a baseball league for kids out there in Levine and South Phoenix. And they created their own little nonprofit along with her son and the family, and a couple of neighborhood folks. And I think you started off with like 80 kids, and they have 800 now kids, 600 or so kids, all ages, boys and girls, softball, baseball. And she came up to me at the Levine barbecue, and she talked me in coaching a few years ago, like 5 years ago. And I said, I don't have time to coach. But here I am coaching, and it has been the highlight of my career is being out there on that field and being with the young ones. So thank you, Fern, for all you do, and thank you for being here this morning.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much. And thank you, Fern, for the wonderful invocation and leading us in the pledge today. So with that, I'll turn to Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Sellers.
Here.
Supervisor Chukri.
Here.
Supervisor Hickman. Here. Supervisor Gallardo. Here. And Chairman Gates.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We heard one of our guests there, I think a little bit earlier. And so, Jose, thanks for joining us from Animal Care and Control. Would you like to come up and introduce your friend to us? Oh, I love the attire.
She is a lap dog, if you can't tell. Her name is Squiggles.
Oh,
and she is very enamored by the audience at the moment. So she's about 4 years old, and she's been with us a couple of weeks. But this dog is just pure love. I mean, if you haven't met her yet, she is totally somebody's future lap dog. She just wants to hug and lick on anybody that she meets right now. So she does give a better image of the breed that people typically have. I do want to give you guys a little bit of the sadder update, if you will. We are still dealing with the situation at our East shelter. We are still very much under quarantine. We did have to, unfortunately, euthanize 36 dogs so far because of the distemper virus that's going around the shelter. That being said, our West shelter is still up, running, flourishing. We are hopeful that people will continue to adopt. We did about 180 adoptions this weekend. So people are definitely coming out and trying to help us. We hope they will continue to do so and give someone like Squiggles the opportunity they need. So with that, I'll leave you guys.
Well, thank you so much, and so sad to hear of that news from the e-shelter, but know that we're all here for you and supporting you guys and all the incredible work you do for all of Maricopa County. So thanks, Jose. And it was Squiggles? Squiggles?
Yep.
Thanks, Squiggles. Oh, my goodness, that's great. All right. Next, we're going to move to planning and development. We have number 5, which is the Marbella Ranch Parcel 3 subdivision guarantee of performance and resolution. The board will now consider item 5.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval on item number 5.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Do I have a second? Second. Ooh, I'm going to give that to Supervisor Sellers. And so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move to the planning and zoning consent agenda. Jen and Darren, if you'd like to come on down and join us. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone here to comment on items PZ1 through PZ3?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right. Any questions at all from my colleagues for Jen and Darren on these items? If not, then I would entertain a motion. Sorry, PZ1 is Enclave at Anthem Senior Living. PZ2 is Marbella Ranch Parcel 4, and PZ3 is Marbella Ranch Parcel 3.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve items PZ1 through PZ3.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Do I have a second? Thank you, Supervisor Chukri. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, well, thank you very much. Next, in the regular agenda, we have PZ4, which is the Laborde property. Now, we have heard from members of the public on this previously. Any comments, Jen and Darren, on this particular item?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Gates, members of the board. Just wanted to give some brief background on this item. PZ4 is a request to rezone from 5-acre zoning to rural 43, which is 1-acre zoning near the southeast corner of 144th Street in Cavedale in Rio Verde. The lot is currently unbuildable because it is 2.5 acres in a 5-acre zoning district. And so the applicant is requesting the rezone in order to build one single-family home on the property. In January, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning request, and that was for several reasons, one of which was because on the west side of 144th Street, so I'll zoom over here, it's probably the best one, on the west side of, you can see the red where the subject property is. To the west of that, that is all 1-acre zoning. On the east side is 5-acre zoning, so it is consistent with what is across the street. And then also there was a significant amount of support from the Rio Verde community at large. To date, we've had 48 letters or petitions of support and 8 letters of opposition. However, following that January commission meeting, Mr. McMurtry, who lives in the property to the west of the parcel, he expressed his opposition to the rezoning. He was unable to attend the January Planning and Zoning Commission. The property owner to the east, Mr. Hertel, he did attend the January commission meeting and expressed his opposition at that hearing. These two property owners represent 100% of the properties within 300 feet of the rezone, as you can see on the slide, and therefore trigger a supermajority vote. This case was originally presented at the March 13th Board of Supervisors meeting, at which it was continued to allow the 3 parties to try to work through the issues and concerns they had regarding the rezoning. In an attempt to alleviate the neighbors' concerns, the applicant recorded a deed restriction so that the 2.5-acre property could not be split further, so only one single-family house could be built on the property. Following that recordation, the applicant requested to bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for hearing on the rezoning request. However, it is my understanding that Mr. McMurtry and Mr. Hertel still oppose the rezoning request, so therefore the supermajority vote is still triggered. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Yes.
Do you mind staying seated for just a few as we go through this?
Excellent. All right. Unless we have any comments at this point, we can open it up to the speakers. First, we have in opposition, Grant Hertel.
Yes, I'm Grant Hertel, and I own the 7.5 acres that borders the LaBorde property to the immediately to the north and the east. I initially purchased that property in 1984, and it was my intent or understanding at that time it was zoned 5 acres, and I had every reason to believe it would stay that way. There's a couple of things that in history I'd like to just very briefly mention. About 1 week after I bought that property, Tom LaBorde, Lucy LaBorde's husband, approached me and wanted to sell that 2.5 acres to me. He was a smart man and realized he had a non-developable property. We had a bill of sale. It was all set to go, but our attorneys concluded, for reasons I don't know, that there needed to be all the well right holders at that time signatures. And we had 2 of them, but we were missing 2. Mr. LaBorde was 1 of 5. And so the deal fell through, sadly, or we wouldn't all be here today. Then in 2006, Lucy LaBorde applied for a variance, and I objected along with the people who owned the McMurtry property at that time, and that variance was turned down at that time. I did discuss with Lucy, and the only time I have ever spoken with Lucy LaBorde was immediately after that meeting. And I told her that if she ever had an interest in selling, to please contact me and we could see if we could work out something together. And I think we could have. I never heard, the next thing I heard was a card I received from the Board of Supervisors that there would be a meeting. Based on the pretty sketchy outline of development plan that Josh Morris has submitted, it's my belief that the property will become pretty well developed, and there'll be a lot of things on that property. There's already a lot of well paraphernalia on that property that's an eyesore, and I feel, and my son, by the way, who will be assuming my property and building a home on it someday, also feels that our quality of life is going to be significantly impacted, having to look at a big house, potentially stables, horses, additional fences, and so forth. I have always supported the McMurtrys because I recognize, and they will be speaking to you, that they are going to be most severely impacted by this rezoning change should it occur. I'll let them outline that for you. I would like to mention that last night, after receiving some information from Jen and going through a large packet of all the documentation on this application, that if you look at the letters in favor, I think you'll see that they're all just one line. It just says, I support, and then there's a signature. And there's really no reasons why they support. And these people live far away. The only people who can see this property, the LaBorde property, or get to it are the McMurtrys and us. Nobody else can get it or see it unless you fly over it or approach it by foot on the park, from the park, McDowell Mountain Park access. In contrast, all of the letters that are in opposition, if you read them carefully, they have a lot of well thought out reasons why those folks are in opposition, and they're much in line with the McMurtrys and mine. I would like to point out one little thing that I found in the documents handed to me yesterday. The professional engineer, I can't pronounce his name, Soren, he's a senior civil engineer for the Maricopa County Environmental Services Department, and he wrote a letter to Jen and her crew basically clearing this, from his standpoint, this application, but he makes one statement's not true, and that is water and sewer will be provided by existing well and new septic system. There will be a new septic system in the plan, but the existing well does not provide water to that piece of property. There will be the need, and Josh has confirmed that to me, Josh Morris, that he would have to punch another well. Water is a problem out there. Wells are going dry, not uncommonly, including one of the McMurtry's wells. The last thing I would like to state to the board is a suggestion, a solution, potential solution to this problem. Should this rezoning request be denied, I feel firmly, in conjunction with the McMurtry's, that we could work with Lucy Laborde and come to a solution to solve this problem amongst the 3 existing property owners. Neither the McMurtry's or I have any desire to harm Lucy Laborde. We fully understand the predicament that she is in, and we are prepared to do what we can, and I'm, again, optimistic we could, to resolve this issue in an outcome favorable to all of us, and also importantly, preventing the need for you all to rezone that property, which potentially could set a precedent for others in the area who are going to be coming along and wanting to rezone their property to 1 acre for sale benefit potentially. So that's basically my statements to you all, and I would make a plea that this zoning request be denied and that we can work this out amongst the existing property owners. And I, for one, am very willing to participate, including financially to potentially buy out or whatever it takes to resolve the issue. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Hurdle, if I might, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Grant is a wonderful name. That's the name of my firstborn son, so I like you already. This is a very special part of my district, and unfortunately, some of these zoning cases over the tenure of my 7 years on this board have dealt with this specific area and have found it challenging. You mentioned more time, and I would respectfully disagree. We gave you more time. We continued this, I believe, Madam Clerk, in either February or March of this year to have more time. You had March, you had April, you had May, you had half of this month, and still no resolution. Why is that?
That's an excellent question, sir. The reason is because I and the McMurtry's did not feel that it was ethically proper or probably even legally proper for us to intervene and go to Lucy to speak with her while she already has a contract submitted, that we would potentially be liable for a lawsuit by somebody else for interfering with a already registered with a title company, a purchase of sale. So I thought of, yes, I would have loved to call Lucy all this time, but I felt that would be completely wrong until this matter is cleared. Tomorrow morning, I would call Lucy, absolutely. But and the McMurtry's felt the same way. So that's the reason.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hertel. Next, William McMurdy.
I am William McMurtry, and I apologize for not being at the original hearing on this issue. My wife died in January, and I was back in Illinois with the funeral and gathering my belongings to permanently move to Arizona.
Well, no apology necessary, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
So sorry for your loss.
When we bought our home and 5 acres immediately west of Lucy Laborde's 2.5 acres, we were told Lucy had been denied a variance in 2006, and there likely would never be a home built on that property. We were aware of the easement, and It has only been used 3 or 4 times a year to service the well. I have talked with Lucy a number of times regarding the well and the easement and being able to get in to service the well. At one time, I made an offer to Lucy to buy her 2.5 acres, knowing it was not buildable, but to protect our quiet enjoyment of our property. We paid a premium price of $1.5 million for our property, knowing there would likely never be daily traffic coming through our private gated entrance and using our private lane. If you deny the rezoning of Lucy's property, the Hertels and the McMurtrys will negotiate directly with Lucy to make her whole, so that zoning will not need to be changed and our quiet enjoyment will not be interrupted. And in response, Lucy cannot negotiate with us when she is under contract with another buyer subject to the rezoning of that property. We did not feel it was appropriate for us to deal with her. In my opinion, you have no obligations to the potential buyers of this property. You only have obligations to Lucy Laborde, the Hertels, and the McMurtrys. The entrance to this property comes right through our gate, right up into our property. This is a property that is secluded, and it's a unique property that we have. With negotiating with Lucy, we believe we can accomplish either totally having that as our protection, not using it, but the 2 people that are objecting are opposed to that being built in this way, and for the daily traffic coming right through our property. Please vote no and do not decrease the value of our property. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues? Thanks for coming down.
All right.
Next, we have David McMurtry.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Dave McMurtry, Bill's son. My wife Lisa and I have moved to Maricopa County from Illinois. We'll be building our custom dream home adjacent to the Laborde property that is up for rezoning. Being new to the area, I don't have Karen's political and social connections. I don't have 848 emails that I could even send to people out in that area to be able to get it. We are at a major social disadvantage by being new to the area in coming to the board and asking you to deny this rezoning. We've received 3 emails from Karen Nebedy since the March meeting, but did not see a reason to respond. My father has worked with Lucy Laborde to get people to work on the well and get them in and out of our property. We felt that if Lucy wanted us to take action, that she would have gotten a hold of us. Dad's worked with her for the last 15 years while they've lived there. There's an easement for her to be able to get to her well through our property. Why would we deal with a third party that doesn't have the ability to legally sign to be able to get the things accomplished that we needed to get accomplished to feel comfortable with this? However, after we met with Jen yesterday, we decided we needed to send Karen our amended deed restriction and a road agreement. In March, we had offered Karen and her family with a deed restriction and road agreement that we had given them an opportunity to give us feedback. and they refused to sign either one. We had our lawyer rewrite the road agreement this week with several of the items that Karen had sent us in her email that she wanted included. We were told that Karen had a deed restriction written up and had Lucy sign it. We were not consulted on this agreement that they had Lucy sign. It's difficult to say that they were working with us when they went around us to be able to get this accomplished. Our legal representative tells us that the deed restriction is unenforceable and must be amended. Voting yes to this rezoning will dramatically affect our very quiet neighborhood. It will also very dramatically increase the amount of traffic on our private road and using our private gate that'll be right outside my front door once we get the house built. We'll also reduce the value and desirability of our property. None of the letters of support actually come from people that are directly affected by this rezoning, but 100% of the people within 300 feet are in opposition. Please vote no for this rezoning. Any questions?
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you for being here this morning, to you and your father, and I'm very sorry for your loss. David, tell me again where your property is. Is it to the
If you look on the
north?
the
Is it
blue
the
map
northwest?
there, no, we're just to the west.
Just to the west, okay.
Right now, it's owned by the family. We're in the process of getting it over into our names to be able to.
And how many acres is that? 5?
It's a 1 acre.
It's 1 acre.
No, we own 5.
We own 5 acres,
5
but
acres, okay.
the house will be on 1 acre.
1 acre of the 5,
Right.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming down and joining us today. We have in support, Josh Morris. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having us. These are good people. I understand their concerns. We are trying to build one house on this property that's been unbuildable. I did contact Lucy and have been trying to get this ball rolling. To address some of their concerns is that they have wanted to really control a lot of this process, control the deed restrictions and different things. I've been trying to work with them in contact, and if I said that I'm going to do something, I have been doing it. They asked for a deed restriction, we got it. I didn't feel like they needed to have full control over that. Lucy did not want to sign that. We did convince her to do that, and she did. We weren't able to do it ourselves because we weren't the legal owners, but we got that done. So I'm just asking for you guys to have a common sense approach here to letting this be buildable, and I appreciate it.
Mr. Morris, Mr. Chairman, if I might. Mr. Morris, what's your relationship with this? What's your relationship with this property?
I am trying to purchase this property. I have the
Okay.
purchase
With
contract.
Karen?
Yes. No, Karen is representing Lucy.
Oh, I see.
And
All right.
she also happens to be my mother-in-law.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Morris.
thank you. Any other questions?
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Thank you.
And finally, Karen Nibbity. Thanks for coming down.
Hi. Let's see. First, the rezoning is just, it's like they said, it's a 2.5 acre that Lucy bought in 1977 from Page Land and Cattle when it was pretty much all just raw land out there. And like Josh just said, all we're wanting to do is make it so that Josh and my daughter can build a home and be close to me. At the last scheduled hearing, we were postponed to give time to work on a deed restriction and a maintenance agreement requested by the opposition. We did send emails on May 9th, May 17th, June 5th, including a proposed deed restriction and a road maintenance agreement to Mid-Tree and Hertel. We've never heard back until late yesterday. And the last prior to hearings, they both times they had their attorney drop documents that were not, what's the right word? That were one-sided heavily. the night before. So not where we would have an attorney be able to look at them, get them signed, notarized, and correct them, that kind of thing. McMurtry had the last month to work with us and refused, as they did the prior two hearings. We feel this is intentionally done to strong-arm us at the last minute, knowing we would not have time to correct, sign, and notarize. We feel, as we have stated in our letter to them, in all three letters, that we have put our best foot forward, and we feel we've done a very strict and permanent deed restriction. The deed, just so you all understand, the deed restriction that Lucy signed is a permanent one. So the land is never dividable. It runs with the land, and it's holds accountable the grantors and whoever buys it in the future. So this will always be in a 2.5 acre, and we feel it would make all the neighbors really happy, because Rio Verde loves to keep their lots from being subdivided and having builders come in and build the smaller homes. So this will keep this lot as a 2.5 acre. Hertel, I'm just going to address a couple things for Hertel and McMurtry real quick. Hertel mentioned a variance that had been done. A variance for this type of situation wouldn't be the proper avenue. It would have been turned down anyways. And then as for the well, we agree it's not quite so pretty. So we hope to negotiate with Lucy, with the well owners, after we own the property, and bury the tank that's sitting above ground, and just bury it so we don't have to look at it either. And then as for water for that community, I'm one of many neighbors that are working towards finding a long-term source of water for our community, because that is a concern for many of us out there that are on hauled water. And also, Mr. Hertel, Lucy bought this property in '77. She's owned it, you guys, for 43 years. She's paid property tax on this property. And they could have bought it at any time. I happened to call Lucy and just said, hey, this property's close to me. Would you be open to selling it? She said, sure. I go, when? She goes, how about now? I said, okay. And it was that simple to go into contract with her, with the kids. Dave McMurtry mentioned that they sent last night a maintenance agreement. The maintenance agreement has a paragraph in it that says, and I'm not making this up, maintenance and repair easement. Owner shall use good faith efforts to maintain the roadway, but owner shall have no obligation to upgrade the roadway. If determined by owner, any successor interest shall have the obligation to contribute a pro rata portion of the cost of repair, etc., to the road upon written notice provided by the owner, which shall be initiated by the owner in its sole and absolute discretion. So in other words, the McMurtry owns all that land, and when he transfers it to the son, it's up to him to decide if he now has to pay or if he no longer has to pay. So, and then if he takes his property and switches the names, now we're paying 100%. So that's some of the wording that we weren't really comfortable with. So I just wanted to explain that. And that's it. So we hope you would consider this.
Thank you. Supervisor Chukri.
Karen, not quite yet.
Sorry.
Just a few questions. The deed restriction is irrevocable, as I understand. And Jen, I'm asking for your input on that as well.
And Supervisor Chukri, Chairman Gates, I'll defer that to Mr. Peck.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Chukri, it is not revocable. It was unilaterally created. A subsequent property owner could revoke it because it's not to anyone's benefit. It's just applied to this particular piece of property.
Oh, we were told that, well, can I ask you a question now? Hold on.
If the chairman wishes,
Yeah.
sure.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up? We called an attorney and asked what to put in the wording, and the wording we were told, and the wording that even their attorney put in their document states, this deed restriction shall run with the land and be binding upon the grantor, heirs, and any subsequent owners, their successors, heirs, and/or assigns.
That's correct. It binds them, but because it doesn't benefit anyone else, they could revoke it and there'd be nobody who could come in and claim that they'd been injured by it. The other thing I would like to point out, the deed restriction does not prevent this land from being subdivided. It only prevents it from building a second home. So you could divide it, have 1 acre, 1.5 acres, and then sell the 1.5 acres. Normally, it would go to an adjacent property owner. I disagree with the statement that it's unenforceable, but I also disagree with the way it was described.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peck. Karen, tell me about the well. Is that, I don't fault the neighbors having concern about that. I mean, this is, what would you consider should this sale go through? What would you do with the well, and would you accommodate their concerns?
That the well is owned by Lucy and some other people, that well provides those homes water. So what, Josh, do you want to come up and talk?
No, please.
Is that okay?
If the chairman kicks me, then I'll send you back. But
He's paying for it, so I want him to say it.
Yeah, my plan was to get a hold of all the well owners that have different shares. There's a 5,000 gallon tank above ground. It is an eyesore, and I expressed that to them also. I wouldn't appreciate, I don't like it there. I would want to go and offer to pay for it to be buried, so it's not an eyesore for my property also.
Okay, if you could stay there. So that's one important thing. The deed restriction was also important. The gate that was mentioned, the maintenance agreement, is there some common ground there or some willingness there on your part?
Yes. They have tried to come up with something. Everything they've come up with has been very one-sided. I told them that I have no problem pitching in for 1/3 if I'm using it. But everything that they've come with has been just really one-sided and last minute, and I haven't been able to go back and forth with a lawyer. But I'm confident that if this is approved and I'm building a house, we're going to get along.
Okay. Jen, I get, here's my, you could both be seated, thank you. Here's where I'm coming down on this, and as Mr. Hickman will know, because he's the longest serving board member with me, that this has been a very interesting part of my district and a very beautiful part of my district, one that has garnered death threats, one that has garnered a lot of unfortunate circumstances, but also one that has afforded, I think, Maricopa County and this board a lot of opportunity, and I see opportunity here. But respectfully to the McMurtrys and to the Hurdles, you've had 35 years to negotiate something, and you didn't. And, you know, my private property rights do not trump yours, nor do yours trump mine. And that's what this comes down to, is private property rights. I believe that the Hurdles and McMurtrys have every right to know that if they bought 5-acre parcels and that there are laws and regulations according to preserving that, they have every right to believe that and to keep that. This is a unique situation. This is a 2.5-acre parcel. And I think something could have been worked out. I really do. I believe, I'll hear you out in a minute. I do believe something could have been worked out, even though they were under contract. This seems to me that you're talking about wanting to buy the parcel. Yes, that's correct. But I don't think there was a good working relationship as far as what I can see and what has been reported by my office. My question would be to you, Jen, is there a way that if Ms. Laborde wanted to sell this property and have one home built, that it would run with the land, that it could not be divided in the future regardless, that there is a deed restriction that could be crafted that would keep this only as one home on 2.5 acres that could not be subdivided, another home couldn't go on, anything to, because if not, it's just valueless land. And that would be one question I would have that I think would help me with my determination.
Supervisor Chukri, Chairman Gates, the deed restrictions are always enforceable as private civil matters. So somebody could take this current deed restriction and file a civil matter if someone tried to build a second home. But I will also ask Wayne Peck to weigh in with any additional comments on that.
And Wayne, my point is that I think the opponents have a right, and they're justified in that they bought this under one premise, and that they want to maintain that. However, this is not a 5-acre parcel. This is a 2.5-acre parcel. So this makes this an anomaly, and it appears maybe the only anomaly in this area. So I don't fault them for not wanting 6 houses on 2.5 acres.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Chukwu, to answer your question, yes. A deed restriction could be crafted, but as Jen indicated, it would still be a private matter. My problem with the way it's written now is none of the other property owners is granted any right. So if they sought to sue, there'd be a question on what basis could they sue. One of the members of the public testified that they had asked to participate in the deed restriction, and that could be done so that in the event the restriction were violated by its terms, adjacent property owners would be given rights to enforce it. The way it's written now, that doesn't occur. So the short answer, which lawyers never like to give to your direct question, is yes, one could be crafted that would be enforceable.
Yes, okay, perfect. Butch McMurtry, I saw both of you shaking your heads. If one of you would like to come up.
See if I can remember, but to 3 of the items that you brought up, you said we had 35 years to work with Lucy to be able to resolve.
Not you, Mr. Hurdle.
Both parties have attempted to purchase the property from Lucy, calling her up like they say they did, and just offered to purchase it so that we could keep it as vacant land.
Okay.
We were turned down. We were advised by legal counsel in the last 2 months to not have contact with Lucy. I'm a little confused on why the board thinks we should have gotten involved in a private real estate legal matter. The other issue that's not being dealt with at all is we have a private road with a private gate that has to be maintained. The wording on it may not be the best thing. We put forth a road agreement back in March. We had given it to them a week ahead of time for them to be able to review. They gave us feedback. We went back to our lawyer. We sent it to them again probably the night before because we were trying to get this all figured out, and they refused to have Lucy sign it. They've also told us in an email, the first email she sent that didn't go to the county, that if you accept this, we will never have a road agreement. We have to be able to have the ability to deal with, all of the roads out here have road agreements. It's we come down a gravel road that in your long-term planning is eventually going to be a county road, but for right now, it's gravel up to us. You guys call it dirt. In Illinois, we call it gravel. But past that, we have it blacktopped coming into the houses. Their property will come off in the middle of our property to be able to get on their property. They're going to substantially increase the amount of traffic that comes in through our gate and onto our private road, and they don't want to have any repercussions for that. Josh has told me personally that they would kick in some money to be able to help. We have no legal standing to be able to be sure that that happens.
David, I think that's fair. I do want to correct you on one thing. The board didn't say you should get involved in a legal matter, and that's not what I said.
Okay.
What I said, and I appreciate you answering the question about having approached Ms. Laborde about purchasing the property. But no, what I said is I was hoping you could come to some kind of agreement about just the things you're talking about the gate, about the deed restriction, about the well, about a maintenance agreement. All of those things is what I was hoping could have happened and transpired in recent months. Now, look, at the end of the day, these are private property rights owners. If Ms. Laborde had a reason for not accepting your offers, that's her
Exactly.
right, just as yours is hers.
Yes.
Is yours. And so here's what I'm going to do today, and this will be the last time. I'm going to continue this to the June 26th meeting. I believe, and just hear me out, I want to see what a deed restriction could look like because I believe that the neighboring homeowners have every right to preserve their 5-acre parcels. I do not believe this has been impartial. I think this has been very unfortunate as neighbors to have this play out. But I would like to see a deed restriction that will run with the land if we could, Wayne, to help the potential buyer and Ms. Laborde. I'd like to see an agreement with Mr. Morris and others, should this transaction go through, that everyone's going to pay their fair share for a road agreement or maintenance agreement. This gate issue is resolved, and that we come to some common ground. I got to tell you, in my 7 years of being here, we've had some contentious things, but this is very different. This just seems very one-sided against the other, and it's really unfortunate.
We cannot deal with Lucy until you vote no.
That's not true. That's not true.
Legally, we can't go to her. Our legal representation is telling us we can't do that.
Their point is well taken, Mr. Chairman, Member Supervisor Chukuri. If they were to make an offer or enter into these kind of arrangements to the detriment of the purchaser, they could face civil liability for tortious interference with an existing contract. So I can't stand here and tell you that the advice their attorney gave them is incorrect.
Okay.
We would like to work something out so that it doesn't have to be rezoned. I understand that.
You don't want a house on this 2 acres.
We don't want people coming in through our property to have to get to the 2 acres.
Are you okay with having a house on these 2.5 acres?
If it's just a single house on the 5 acres, I'm good with that.
Josh, do you want to come up? Is there a way you could situate the house to, I feel like this is the people's court and I'm Judge Wapner. I mean, I think this is ridiculous. I really do. This is not what we do as government, just so you know. This is really ridiculous. Josh, do you think that you could situate a home to address the concerns of your neighbors?
Yes, sir.
We're still going to have them coming in through our property.
How so? Because of where?
That's the only legal easement to get into that property. It's the only way, the way it is situated with the 2.5 acres, for them to be able to get to their property is through our property.
Jen, is there a way to navigate that? So.
Supervisor Chukri, no, it appears that is their only ingress egress because they border the park. Unless they came in through Mr. Hertel's property, it is considered I believe, a major or a collector in the McDOT's. It's a major collector in McDOT's major streets and routes plan. It's highly doubtful it'll ever be improved as a county road because it dead ends to the park. But that is my understanding, their only ingress egress.
Okay. Did Mr. McMurtry, have you subdivided your 5 acres?
Our 5 acres right now is in 3 parcels. There's 2 1 acres and 1 3-acre parcel.
Why did you subdivide it?
I think that was done before we purchased it.
Okay. Mr. Hurdle, same thing with you? Are yours subdivided? Okay. It's all one? Okay.
Supervisor Chukri, if I may, the McMurtry's property is zoned 1 acre. Mr. Hertel's property is zoned 5 acres, so he will not.
Oh, I see. So do you plan to build more than 1 house on the 5 acres you have, even though it's subdivided?
Right now, we have 1 house. My wife and I are planning to build a house that'll be right next to the.
So you'll have 2 homes on 5 acres.
Correct.
But it's not okay for them to have 1 home on 2.5 acres.
It's the coming through our property and increasing the traffic in our private lot that, yes, I do oppose.
Okay. So it's that. Yes, Wayne.
Thank you. If I may clarify, there's no prohibition on the neighbors having conversations with the purchaser. When
Okay.
I indicated that they would have a problem to negotiate directly with the property owner at this time, but for them to sit down and meet and work something out is perfect.
Okay, that was my intent. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both, gentlemen. We are going to, I'm not going to belabor this. I will make a motion to continue this to June 22nd. Mr. Morris, Karen, I suggest that you work with these 3 property owners, or really 2 property owners, to try and work out this ingress egress. We will work, Jen and Mr. Peck, if we can, on this deed restriction, because I do believe that that's fair. But I'm happy to hear that they're not opposed to building a home. They're opposed on the ingress egress, and I don't know how we work around that, but we're going to have to figure it out. And I will not continue it beyond this. So hopefully we can come to an agreement. I am not going to suggest that any type of game playing happens to try to somehow push Mr. Morris out for buying the property because the neighbors would like to own the property, I'm not going to support that. This is a free enterprise system, and I believe in that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this to the 26th for a vote.
All right, thank you very much for that motion, and thanks to all the folks that are here today and your willingness to work with one another, and thank you very much, Supervisor Chukri, for your efforts here to bring folks together so that we can have a solution.
Second.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Sellers. We have a motion to continue until June 26th and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion to continue passes unanimously. Thanks to everyone again for your time and continued effort to get this to a resolution. Next item is, this is under Clerk of the Board. 6, these are the liquor license applications. New license for R-Wings, and B, special event license for 3 Butterflies SIDS Foundation. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone here to speak on items 6A and B?
None, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that then, the board will now consider items 6A and B.
Move to approve items 6A and 6B, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, under county officers, we have under the Assessor 7 State Retirement System Government Property Lease Tax. Under Clerk of the Board, we have 8, which is the application for Anthem Fireworks Display. And under the County Attorney, we have 9, amend agreement with Scottsdale Healthcare Hospitals, and 10, vehicle exemptions from markings and issuance of non-government license plates. The board will now consider items 7 through 10.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Chukri, do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo. We have a motion and a second. I would like to mention on item 9 that we're really grateful to Honor Health for their partnership and providing aid to MCAO while investigating and prosecuting sexual assault cases. This assistance that they're providing is we're really grateful for that. So with that, we have motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Continuing under the County Attorney, 11, victim compensation funding from the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. 12 is Maricopa County versus Purdue Pharma. That's the multi-district opioid litigation. 13, under the sheriff, we actually have 13 and 14, which is to amend the sole source contract with Atos IT Solutions and Services, Inc. and CompuCom Systems, Inc. 15 is to amend competition and practicable for JMS Software Integration Services. And 16 is to amend the agreement with the town of Cave Creek. And on 12, I think we have, Madam Clerk, do you have anything on 12 for clarification on that? Or am I mistaken?
I don't believe I have any additional notes on that, Mr. Chairman.
My mistake. All right, then the board at this point will consider items 11 through 16.
Move to approve items 11 through 16, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Next, under adult probation, we have 17, exemption from county markings and issuance of non-governmental license plates. Under juvenile probation, we have 18, resolution to participate in the State of Arizona Family Counseling Program. 19, exemption from county markings and issuance of non-governmental license plates. And under Superior Court, we have 20, which is appoint the Superior Court Commissioner as Superior Court Judge Pro Tem. The board will now consider items 17 through 20.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of items 17 through 20.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Gallardo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next, under Assistant County Manager, 21, non-objection letter for foreign trade zone for RRB Beverage Operations, Inc. Under air quality, 22 is amend the lease agreement with IP BPG City Square LLC. 23 is amend the intergovernmental service agreement with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And under animal care and control, we have 24 donations for April 2019. 25 is a New Hope agreement with Living the Dream Rescue. And 26 is amend New Hope agreement with Soldier's Best Friend. Board will now consider items 21 through 26.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Chukri. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Continuing under animal care and control, we have 27 and 28, which are to amend IGAs with the City of Litchfield Park and the City of Chandler. 29 is an IGA with the town of Cave Creek. Under correctional health, we have 30, an agreement with National University, and 31 is an MOU with Banner University Health Plans. Under county administration, we have 32, which is amended an agreement with Valley of the Sun United Way, and 33 is a revised EASE program policy. Board will now consider items 27 through 33.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of items 27 through 33.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next, under enterprise technology, we have 34, which is to increase expenditure authority for impracticable contract with Data Bank. Under environmental services, for 35, we have the Board of Health fee waiver reimbursement. 36 is to amend a lease agreement with the IP BPG City Square LLC. And under finance, we have 37, electronic funds transfer authorization, and 38, funds transfers and warrants. Board will now consider items 34 through 38.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Chukri. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next, under Human Services, we have 39, amend IGA with the Regional Public Transportation Authority. 40 is an agreement with the Arizona Department of Housing. 41 through 47 is to amend agreements and contracts with New Leave, AZ Send, Central Arizona Shelter Services, Community Bridges, Inc., the Human Services Campus, Inc., Lutheran Social Services of the Southwest, and Native American Connections. The board will now consider items 39 through 47.
Chairman, move for approval of items 37.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I think, I know what you meant, Jack. And I would second that only.
39 through 47.
39 through 47, I would second that. And just on item 41, to compliment Bruce and his team for all that they've done on what is obviously a very critical issue in homelessness. So.
Thank you very much. Well put. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Continuing under Human Services, we have 48 and 49, which are IGAs with the City of Avondale and the City of Surprise. 50 is amend the agreement with the Tempe Community Action Agency. 51 is a license agreement with the Arizona Department of Economic Security. 52 is amending a lease agreement with HF1D Phoenix 1706 LLC. 53 is a donation from the Arizona Golf Resort. 54 is a budget adjustment from the Regional Public Transportation Authority. And 55 is an agreement with Community Bridges, Inc. The board will now consider items 48 through 55.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Gallardo. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next, we move into the medical examiner. 56 is intergovernmental letter of agreement with MIHS. And by the way, thank you very much to MIHS HS had Supervisor Gallardo and I and several other folks from the county out to tour the Maryville Hospital last week. Very impressive what they're doing out there. Under Parks and Recreation, 57, increase to Revenue and Expenditure Authority. 58 was a transfer from Parks Souvenir Fund to Park Enhancement Fund. Under Procurement Services, 59, job order contracts for facilities management. 60 is Arizona at Work, Maricopa County One-Stop Operator. And 61 was a Phase 2 change order to the contract with Hensel Phelps Construction. The board will now consider items 56 through 61.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Chukri. Do you have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Under Public Health, we have 62, which is an affiliation agreement with the Beatitudes Campus. 63 is to amend an IGA with the Arizona Department of Health Services. 64, amend a lease agreement with the High Revocable Trust. 65, rescind the amendment to the Arizona Department of Health Services. And 66 is a budget adjustment for public health hepatitis A outbreak response. The board will now consider items 62 through 66.
Move to approve items 62 through 66, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Under Transportation, we have 67 and 68, sale of excess land, 2.5 acres near Cave Creek Road, and then the Bell Road project parcel. 69 through 71 are annexations by the City of Avondale and the City of Chandler. 72 is right-of-way grant temporary use permit for the Vulture Mine Road. 73, new traffic controls on Triumph Court. 74 is the IGA with the town of Queen Creek. And 75 is easement, right-of-way, and relocation assistance documents. Board will now consider items 67 through 75.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of items 67 through 75.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Under the Board of Supervisors, we have 76 and 77, which are appointments to the Industrial Development Authority Board of Directors and Board of Adjustment and Drainage Review, and 78, resignation and appointment to the Transportation Advisory Board. We're grateful for everyone who serves on our boards and commissions in Maricopa County. And with that, the board will consider items 76 through 78.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for approval of items 76 through 78, and with a comment.
Yes.
We have Mr. Rapar here, who's volunteering to serve on the Maricopa County Transportation Advisory Board. He's certainly shown a passion for serving the community by volunteering with the Chandler Salvation Army, the Kiwanis Club, and the Chandler Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few. So welcome and thank you, Mr. Rapar.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Do you have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman, with a comment that
Yes.
I am recommending Andrew Cohen to be on our IDA, and I think most of you know Andrew, and he's a very talented and gifted individual when it comes to these types of issues, especially finance-related, so I think he'll serve us well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, Supervisor Gallardo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out and thank Fern, who is here with us. She led us in the pledge earlier today. She'll be serving on the Board of Adjustments. Thank you. And a quick note to Abe Harris, who has served in this capacity for a number of years. Had a great conversation with him around a week ago and thanked him for his service to the county. He had been on the board even prior to me coming on this particular board, so he has done so much, and I look forward to continue working with him in other capacities. But Fern, thank you once again.
Wonderful. I echo that, and we got some superstars here. So with the motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, under setting of hearings, under the clerk of the board, we have 79, which is a proposed Mesa Linda Irrigation Water Delivery District Impact Statement. And then under Planning and Development, we have 80, which is planning and zoning cases. Board will now consider items 79 and 80.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Chukri. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Also under setting of hearings, under Transportation 81 through 92, we have road file numbers A571, A572, A559, A573, A577, A578, A631, A636, A637, A643, A644, and A645, and 93, which is a patent easement abandonment for road file number PAB 0098.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat that?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
I'm in favor of all of them except A636, okay? That's the one that just gets me under my skin.
That will be noted. The board will now consider items 81 through 93.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo. And for the record, without exception, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, second?
I'll second because that A636 is in my district and I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next, on to the consent agenda, 94 and 95 donations, 96 duplicate warrants, 97 the Head Start monthly report, 98 mail ballot elections for special taxing districts, 99 secured and unsecured tax roll corrections, 100 stale dated warrants, 101 is the RICO Funds quarterly report, 102 Treasurer's collections and investment summary, 103 tax abatements, and 104 canvass of elections. The board will now consider items 94 through 104.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you so much for the motion and the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We continue with the consent agenda. 105 civil penalty appeals, 106 property reclassification appeals for approval, 107 donations, 108 precinct committeemen, 109 settlement and resolution of property tax cases and claims. The board will now consider items 105 through 109.
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers, for the motion. Thank you, Supervisor Hickman, for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Now, we move under the addendum, and I'm actually going to step out for the first item on the addendum and turn it over to our Vice Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the County Attorney's Office, A1, reject offer of judgment in Macy's West Stores Incorporated case. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Hearing none? No objections again?
We're good.
Okay, all approved. We'll wait for our chairman to come back.
Thank you so much for your work, Mr. Vice Chairman. Next, under County Attorney A2 is a settlement in the Thunderbird Junior Golf Foundation case. Human Services A3 is a lease agreement with Brookwood ERMTA LLC. And under Procurement Services, we have A4, which is the Inmate Communication Systems. Do we have any questions or any motion with respect to A2 through A4?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve, but I do have a few questions on A4.
Yes, please.
Just to clarify.
Would you like,
If someone, I see a distinguished group of gentlemen and ladies back there from the Sheriff's Office. If someone, I don't know who best to address the questions to, but why don't I start with them and then whoever thinks they're best qualified to answer.
Excellent.
If they would be so open to doing that. And I support Sheriff Penzone in this effort. I just think from the outside looking in, and when we're talking to our constituents, people look at jail being something that you should have the strict confines of jail and nothing out that's in society. So when we see tablets, my questions really center around how closely do we monitor the content that they can go and see, whether it's movies or things that they shouldn't be seeing pornography, all of the common ideas and things that you would think of in that case. And then also, there's got to be cost efficiencies. I believe these are being purchased by, not by us, but not with taxpayer dollars, is my understanding. Is there any cost to the county? So whoever is most appropriate.
Please come on down and join us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, gentlemen. This really, I don't want you to be misled. It's not adversarial at all. I just want to know these things. And I know that Pima County, I think, has done something similar. Has anyone else in the country been doing this type of thing? And I believe it helps with recidivism, too, is our hope here, right?
Yes. Chairman Gates, Supervisor, we actually vetted this over the course of the last 6 months. And to the county, there is zero cost. It's a revenue sharing agreement. The vendor who won the bid is going to incur all the cost of installing the system, putting it in place, making sure tablets are available. They'll keep a reserve of replacement tablets as they break. Everything will be good. As far as content, it's a closed system. It's a closed network that's put in place. There's no way to move past the firewalls into the normal internet. So it's only content that we download onto the tablets for the inmates to look at or to purchase if they want items that way.
Mr. Prindiville, so what was the idea behind it? Does it help with recidivism? This other party that's paying for them, what's the benefit to them? It can't be all just altruism. I'm assuming they have some kind of a revenue they would receive.
There's a lot of revenue that comes in from this this project. We currently have video visitation and phone calls available to the inmates, and then everything else is a manual process. This puts it all on the tablets. The revenue projected from this increases significantly for the county share, but we also believe that for that to be enabled, obviously the vendor is making a pretty good chunk of revenue on this as well. None of the services that we offer currently to the inmates free of charge go away. This is just an additional...
It's an enhancement, if you will.
Additional enhancement. As far as what our other motives in this are, is when we went and visited Pima County, the jail was very quiet. The inmates were, their hands were busy. They were on their tablets. They were either looking at information or downloading content. They can work towards their GED. There are a lot of educational programs that are available. And to a lot of our inmates, this provides access to a technology that some of them have never seen. So they can pick up job skills and other additional benefits.
Okay, that's great, and hopefully that helps with recidivism, obviously. And so if they wanted to purchase something that was part of the downloadable content that the MCSO put on there, that's how they would do so. That's where the revenue comes in.
Correct.
Okay.
They just use their inmate account, and they can have their family members load money on there for them to do whatever they want to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Prindiville. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Those are important questions. Any questions from my other colleagues? Supervisor Hickman.
Yeah, just a quick statement, and this kind of shows what all of us do outside. Some people just think we come and make a formal board meeting and vote and leave, but this is showing exactly what we do during the week. Joy, thank you for letting us have the ability during your briefing. It's just Steve wasn't able to make it, but I'm glad you're illuminating some of the questions that were asked of the Sheriff's Department, because it is sometimes a stretch for us to consider. One thing that we can't forget, though, is the jail system. Our family has an inmate work crew, as you all know. Those are prisoners that have been found guilty of crimes and are serving the sentence. Let's not forget that people that are in jail, a vast majority of them are waiting for sentencing. So basically innocent until proven guilty. So to be able to keep them connected to the outside world, guilty or found innocent, I know that this is going to have a great impact with these inmates to keep in contact, if they so choose, if they voluntarily so choose to keep in contact with their family members. I also view this as a new possible revenue stream into the sheriff's department, into the jail system, that because as we do these budgets, and we've almost all of us have been chairman or definitely participating in a budget, there's great costs to run a jail system. And this gives us an alternate chance again, because we quite often have to reach into our general fund to fund maintenance of effort at the jail. So with that being said, I appreciate you putting those questions out into the public forum, Steve, to find out some of the things that we were able to find out this week through Joy's briefing. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Other questions or comments? Again, sort of echoing my colleagues' comments, this is great to see an opportunity like this at no cost to the taxpayer, where the folks who are in the jail are maybe learning how to use a technology that they haven't used before, which then gives them more vocational opportunities, which decreases the likelihood that they'll be back in our jail and back in the prisons in Arizona and around our country. So thank you for your work on this. And unless we have any other questions, did we have a motion?
Yeah, I made the motion.
We did. Okay, great. We had a motion and a second.
Happy to second it.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Motion by Supervisor Chukri, second by Supervisor Hickman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. Thanks so much. Now we're going to recess as the Board of Supervisors, and we'll convene as the Flood Control District Board of Directors. We have F1, which is an on-call final design contract. F2 is an affiliation agreement with Arizona State University, and F3 is easement, right-of-way, and relocation assistance documents. The board will now consider items F1 through F3.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of number F1 through F3, and just pointing out F1, just the great work between Maricopa County Flood Control District and the City of Phoenix to address some of the issues, especially out there in the Levine world, your world, and making sure that we're prepared for possible flooding and other situations out there. So great work.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, and one of many, right? Great partnerships between the county and the city of Phoenix or other municipalities within Maricopa County on these efforts. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Now we'll adjourn as the Flood Control Board, Flood Control District Board of Directors, and convene as the Library District Board of Directors to consider item L1, which is an affiliation agreement with Arizona State University. Board will now consider item L1.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Chukri. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Sellers. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Now we'll adjourn as the Library District Board of Directors and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. And Madam Clerk has handed me, we have one speaker slip today. As a reminder, we have 2 minutes for the public comment, and also Arizona law prohibits the Board of Supervisors from commenting on the public comment, but certainly if appropriate, we may direct the county manager to follow up on any comments or requests. With that, I would invite Martha Thompson to join us. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, I'm Martha Thompson, District 4. I have an apology for the board. The last time I spoke here, I asked you to consider ballot by mail for Maricopa County because it would result in a huge increase of voter turnout, and that's good for democracy. That was an assumption based on the rational choice perspective that when voting is made more convenient, many more voters will vote. It seemed perfectly logical, Then we continued researching, and as it turns out, voters are actually very complex and unpredictable creatures. There are plenty of statistics on voter turnout in the states and counties, all in the West, by the way, that have adopted ballot by mail. They tell us that the impact on voter turnout has been inconsistent. So many factors, so little time. Good. We did find an impressive little study on the possible impact of ballot by mail should it be adopted in Maricopa County. I have supplied a 2-page summary there of that report and information on how to get the full report should you be interested. Here's the short answer. Based on actual experience with ballot by mail at the jurisdictional level in Maricopa County, the average increase in voter turnout was somewhere between 1.61% and 5.86%, depending on the sample size. Between a negligible 1.6% and an underwhelming 5.8% is far from the increased turnout I was hoping for. But there are other very good reasons to adopt ballot by mail, and I'll be reminding you of those things in the future. Through the 11 or so of these meetings that my friend and I have attended so far, I've heard several people say things from this podium for which they surely should apologize. You'll remember me because I actually did it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your insights. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. All right. Well, no further public comment slips then. We'll turn to that portion of the meeting where those of us up here have an opportunity to reference anything they'd like to that's going on. So I'm going to start with our County Manager, Joy Rich. All right. Thank you. Supervisor Sellers. All right. Supervisor Chukri.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I want to thank my colleagues for indulging me this morning. I was hopeful we could get a resolution on that one issue, but we just weren't able to yet. And secondly, on a more personal level, today is my 20th wedding anniversary. And so that shows the patience of my wife and just how great she is. But I said, honey, I can't have breakfast or lunch with you today. I want to spend time with my colleagues here in Maricopa County. So barring any unforeseen circumstance, I will have dinner, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. I highly recommend it. Thank you and congratulations.
Shout out to my wife.
Supervisor Gallardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned it earlier. We had a great tour by Maricopa Integrated Healthcare Services on the work that they're doing there at Maryville. It's right there in my neck of the woods. I remember the day in which I got a call from Abrazo to let me know. Well, they didn't call me. They sent their lobbyists to come talk to me and tell me. But it's all right. I got their director on the phone right away when they told me that they were going to close the hospital. And it has just been that location there in Maryville where folks would turn to health care and services. And it was more than just the hospital, it was the medical center. It was a place for folks to go if they needed help. And when they made that decision to close it, Abrazo decided they wanted to close it. The question is, what's going to happen to the people out in West Phoenix? Where would they go? One of my first phone calls was with former Supervisor Mary Rose Wilcox, who serves on the Hospital District Board, and I said, hey, how can we do something here? And she says, we're ahead of you, Steve. We're already talking. I said, oh, good. But they've just done a great job out there. And not only just having the emergency room there, but all the different programs, particularly around behavioral health and the work they're doing there is remarkable. So it was a great tour, and I'm glad to see that the emergency room is being used way over capacity that they thought they would have, and rightfully so. It just shows you how important it was. The second part, of course, we have 2 new Phoenix City Council folks that were sworn in. I didn't get a chance to go to the swearing in. I was invited. I just was not able to go because I was going out of town, but I look forward to working with both these council members. I know them both well. So I look forward to partnering up with them on various districts or various projects. Carlos Garcia, which is representing District 8, which is for the most part South Phoenix, and Betty Guarardo, who will be my new council person. Betty, I've known for years too. We've been on the protest lines together, her, Betty, and I. But she will represent West Valley well. And I look forward to partnering both with Betty and Carlos on, when it comes to county and city stuff. I think it's so critical that we work with our local governments and partner on various projects. Let it be flood control, let it be our parks, whatever the issues are, just partnering up together. And then just finally, once again, thank you, Fern, for coming down, and thank you for serving on the Board of Adjustments. And thank you once again to Abe Harris for his work previously on the Board of Adjustments. Well appreciative, and I know he worked well there, and look forward to working with him some more. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you. Supervisor Hickman.
Yeah, I always love to call out and appreciate some of the people that work for us in the county. So I would like to tell the Sheriff's Department I appreciate them very much, and the deputies and the correction staff, the detention staff upcoming. There was an absolute apparent idiot rape suspect that decided to jump the fence at Luke Air Force Base, and he was apprehended, and I believe it was by the MCSO. So I appreciate that very much, and please let Sheriff Penzone. And the other idiotic thing that occurred was, and I wanted to thank the library staff. Somebody decided to bring a gun and try to rob the White Tanks branch, and so they opened up a delivery door to be faced with a guy with a gun, and I believe we apprehended them too. So Cindy, I don't think she's out there, but please, I hope that they're all doing better. That is probably the last thing that a library staffer would think would happen to them. So I appreciate the Sheriff's Department and the library for having to deal with two idiots this past week in my district.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Hickman. Well said. Just following up a little bit on Supervisor Gallardo's comments, very impressed by the Maryvale Hospital. And by the way, the best view in the Southwest Valley, I think, bar none, right? It's a great facility, and they're going to provide great care for the folks in the West Valley and in Maryvale in particular. And then also on the City of Phoenix front, I had my county coffee last week, and Mayor Gallego joined us. We were at one of my favorite places in District 3, the North Mountain Brewery in Sunny Slope, and no beer was served. This was the morning coffee, but we had I think we had over 70 people there, so I had a great turnout and great discussion of issues in the City of Phoenix. And Mayor Gallego multiple times during her remarks referenced how she looks forward to partnering with Maricopa County on several issues such as flood control and many others. So very encouraging to hear that. And we'll be back out at our monthly meeting in Desert Hills next Tuesday over the lunch hour. Always great to hear what's going on out there. And so I encourage everyone to come out and join us for that. But unless there's anything else with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.